Hey, it's Faith Talk Live. I'm Rick Probst.
And I'm Dan Ratcliffe.
If you're watching Facebook Live, YouTube Live, you see, well, you don't exactly see, but he's there. Cameron
I don't know, that little icon looks just like him, I think.
Cameron McAllister, apologist and author. And we've had Cameron on before and his dad, and I think we've had them both at the same time. Do you remember that, Cameron, or you still getting counseling for that?
Well, yes, this was several months ago, I believe. Yeah, Sean Hart had set up the interview, and it was, Dad was there. You had the beautiful Scottish brogue, and then I don't have it. So apologies, listeners.
But you can put it on pretty well, though, can't you, Cameron? I mean, you do a good dad imitation, right?
Absolutely. They may take our, they'll never take our freedom.
Yeah.
You can't see it, but I have a blue stripe.
A kilt on? I can picture it in my head.
I'll bet if he had $1 for every time somebody asked him to do that, he could retire.
Yeah, he could.
Absolutely.
Cameron McAllister, we love these guys. The new book, both of them together decided to put this down, Faith That Lasts. If I remember correctly, I'm 60. I tend to forget. I think you guys have been working on this for a while. The idea was there for a while, right?
Yes, Rick. It actually, it was a request initially from many of the parents we ran into on the road at conferences when we were speaking and when people put two and two together. And we just overwhelmingly, we found that many parents were very sad and very scared and very tired when it came to the subject of their kids, particularly their teenagers.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when the first pushes came to maybe collaborate on talking about faith in the household. And also it's instructive to look at the big contrast between Dad's testimony and my own. Dad, of course, being a non-Christian, having a radical conversion, and then me experiencing the blessings and some of the pitfalls of growing up in a Christian household.
Mm-hmm. Now, you mentioned those, what you just said, the pitfalls of growing up in a Christian household.
Yeah.
We tend to think, yes, if you raise them in a loving Christian environment, everything's going to be just hunky-dory and nothing bad is ever going to happen. But many times that can lead kids to not really kind of make their faith their own, right? And that can lead to problems later on.
Yes. And I think I don't want to downplay the tremendous blessing, of course, of growing up in a Christian home.
Right.
And I mean, it's just a massive advantage. I mean, my dad would have been spared so much pain had faith been instilled in him from an early age.
Right.
But obviously there are some occupational hazards, you might say. And one of them is if you're not careful as you get older, you may just take your faith for granted. It just becomes kind of background scenery. And we do talk about this quite a bit in the book, but you may master the Christian lingo. So you could get all the right answers on a theology exam, but your heart, of course, can be elsewhere. You can know all about Christianity and not belong to Christ. And I think that is a crucial distinction that we often struggle with as parents, actually.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking with Cameron McAllister. He and his dad put a great book together. It's called Faith That Lasts. It's been out since the 26th, and we'll find out about the responses so far, even though it's only been out for, maybe a little over a week or so.
Right.
Apologist, authors. You mentioned about inadequacy. I still have two at home. One of them just turned 18. A lot. I don't know. Maybe it's the culture. My oldest one is 31, and there are issues, always problems and challenges. No matter what the Gen Z, Gen X, Gen whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems like that. And Dan, what is it? The Z now? Is that what it is? The Z?
The Z, and I think they're moving out of Z now to something else. Who knows what comes next?
Seems like the younger boys were a little more difficult than the older one because of the culture shift. Is it shifts that make us inadequate? I mean, if this were 1821, would we still have the same issues?
Well, every era brings with it a unique set of challenges, and we do talk about that in the book. But the fact remains that being a Christian, being in the world and not of the world, will always set you at odds with the dominant culture, no matter what time period you find yourself in. That's why if you turn to the book of Acts and you see the birth of the early church, they're immediately at odds with the surrounding culture because their allegiance is to Christ and not to Caesar. Yeah. And in our own day and age, where we've so glorified basically autonomy and control over our lives, I think the message of Christianity that you are not your own, to use the words of the Apostle Paul, and that you were made by the Lord, and that there is actually a design, a telos to human life, that there's a real purpose for each and every one of us. I think that's often received as a huge offense because it flies in the face of our ambitions to control our own lives. So I think that's one of the central challenges today is trying to show people that they were made by God, for God, and that Augustine is right. Our hearts are restless until they find their rest in him. And so but one of the things that we do in the beginning of the book, guys, is we outline three misconceptions that are pretty operative in many Christian homes. We didn't just pull these out of the air. These kind of crystallized over the years as we talked to many parents. And I'll go through them real quickly. They are: number one, information saves. The notion if we just get the right information into our kids' heads, if we give them enough worldview training, take them to enough conferences, then they will hold on to their faith. Number two, fear protects. That if you can instill an abiding sense of kind of fear and suspicion of the world outside the church, then that will protect them and keep your kids away from some of the harmful trends. And then finally, that spiritual education belongs to experts, that when you reach that impasse, when you really can't get through to your kids anymore, you basically, in modern terms, outsource them to, quote, professionals. Now, all three of these are really understandable, and they're motivated by the best of intentions. I mean, parenting is really hard. So I hope listeners don't hear me with a hard-hearted tone in my voice here at all. But all three of these revolve around an illusion of control that's pretty thoroughly modern, actually. And that's what we're pushing back against. And then the second half of the book gives a holistic response to each of those.
Faith That Lasts is the name of the book Stuart and Cameron McAllister wrote. And now, is this a book, Cameron, that both kids and parents can read? Is it kind of on the level where kids can go, hey, you know what? I can get this. Absolutely.
It's actually, the whole structure of the book is designed like that. So you get those three misconceptions. Fear protects, information saves, spiritual education belongs to experts. And then you have a dad's response to each of those. And then you have a son's response to each of those. So you have the parent point of view incorporated in there, but you also then have the kid's perspective as well. So I actually hope that kids do read this alongside their parents, and that it becomes kind of a sort of a bridge building tool.
Cameron McAllister, he and his dad, Stuart, Faith That Lasts is the book we're talking about, the 26th that came out. It's only been a short time, Cameron, but what have you heard so far? Maybe some folks probably haven't as of yet finished it, but what have you heard so far?
We've heard some really good things so far, and it's been very heartening, actually, to hear the responses. Lots of people saying this is a deep recovery of biblical wisdom and the fear in the Lord, in that really pushes against some of our modern obsession with just technique and methodologies and strategies. Not that those aren't helpful up to a point, but essentially, we've heard from one of the first responses that we got that really surprised us was from the pastor Scott Sauls, and he's an author himself, but he said in his endorsement that he wished the book had been written a long time ago. And that's probably one of the most consistent ones we've heard, that I wish I had read this when my kids were younger.
Yeah.
So we've had some good responses.
Definitely a good book to pick up. And like you said, read it with your child, or if you are a teen or whatever, read it with your parents. And it's a great way to get the perspective of both parent and child.
Yeah, check it out. ibpress.com is a great place to pick it up. We got to go to a break here in a second, Cameron, but would love to ask you about 2021. Are you traveling at all? Are you doing basically digital stuff? And what do you have coming up for you guys in 2021?
Yeah, I would say it's predominantly Zooming and digital excursions.
Yeah.
But that said, we have done a few in-person events, and we actually do have one coming up that I'm pretty excited about. It's with my wife teaches at a classical school called Oak Hill Classical School.
Okay.
Yeah, so they do an event called Evenings at Oak Hill, and where they have speakers share on topics of faith in the household or classical education. So my dad and I are both going to do an in-person
Awesome.
event. Yeah, with all proper safety protocol in place. But we'll be there at the end of February, it's looking like. So really looking forward to that. Dad and I did just speak at an event in Alabama a week ago as well. So we're getting a few of them here, a few in-person events here and there, but we are just can't tell you how much, I mean, everybody feels this way, but how much we miss that. There's just a vital energy, and you lose so much when you're not in the same room with people and you can't actually see their faces, especially in Q&As. So we're really ready for, just to get back out there.
Definitely.
Yeah, we've heard that over and over, haven't we, Dan? Musicians,
we have.
pastors, actors, comedians. We've heard everyone, apologists and authors. Check it out. It's ibpress.com, the place to go. Apologist and author Cameron McAllister, he and his dad Stuart wrote this book. It is a really, really good book. We got to go to a break. Thank you so much, Cameron. We appreciate you. We've got to go to a break. We'll be right back. I'm Rick Probst.
And I'm Dan Ratcliffe.
This is Faith Talk Live.